Hi y'all, back in the shop, me and Rona, working on these boxes. Been working on them for a while now, but haven't made any videos. Had some family stuff happen that kind of sad. We won't get into that. So wear your mask, y'all. So I saved you the trouble of watching me do the sanding with this half sheet sander. This is very important. Those palm sanders you see that are quarter sheet sanders, they don't make surfaces flat. They tend to make them more round, and they round edges, and they bevel down because they don't have a large enough surface area. This is a half sheet sander. They're difficult to find. The market has been taken over by the cheap quarter sheet sanders, but don't use them unless you have something where you're trying to follow contours and not trying to make surfaces flat. If you want to make surfaces flat, use a half sheet sander. This one has air intake. You punch holes in the paper with this plate, hook it up to your vacuum with the hose, and it sucks all the dust away and keeps you clean. And I have sanded all the surfaces, eased all the edges, and then we're going to be using these piano hinges. Not sure why I say we. I'm going to be using these piano hinges, and the way I'm going to use them is to screw up into the bottom of the door and screw into the face of the box. And that means I have to bevel this box on the edge to allow a space for this hinge knuckle. And I went ahead and did that on 3 sides. I have a hinge here for the small door, a hinge here for the large door, and I did it on this side also, and that will allow me to get a finger in underneath to lift the door. So, all that's done. I did that beveling with this hand power plane like this. Gotta be very careful how you do it. I did the long side here, then I did this side, then I did this side. If you do this side first, you'll blow out the veneers in this corner. Okay, so that's how I got the box prepped and ready. It's gonna be a little bit longer of a video. I'm sorry for that. But I want to show you all the steps in getting these boxes ready. I decided not to finish the boxes before adding all the parts inside that are going to mount the BMS and the display and the Anderson connector for disconnecting the battery. I'm going to drill a hole now for that Anderson connector. I'm going to measure down 3 3/4, measure over 2 1/2. And during the drilling process, feel free to fast forward through. You don't need to watch me drill a hole with a hole saw in 3/4 inch plywood. But I am going to put a clamp on the box to keep it from moving, so that I can apply some pressure on it. And I'm sure that this process this morning is not going to go as smoothly as it's been going because I'm doing a video, so obviously I have to make a lot of mistakes. But I'm going to go ahead and drill that now. Get all my protection on. It's important. Love you, Rona. When Rona hears the tools start up, she goes outside. She's protecting her ears too. And that's good. Not too bad. Oh, there we go. Okay, now the most obnoxious tool ever invented is the multi-tool. And this one came from Harbor Freight, so it's a bit more obnoxious. It's important for this next step. Oh, thank goodness that's over. All right. Now, I built up a long piece, about 5 feet long, with multiple layers of plywood. And I did it to create a device to hold my Anderson connector. And after gluing up these layers, and one of these had to be ripped to give me the right thickness to hold the Anderson connector. And after doing that, I went through, rounded over the edges, and then I cut these. These are at a 57-degree angle, which is the biggest angle that my large 15-inch Hitachi chop saw, I think it's in 1987 or something, the biggest angle that it will cut. So that's going to go on the face of the box, and I'll show you how that's going to work without rotating the box around or moving the camera. Really my goal to do these as one take unedited videos, but it'll mount on the front of the box like that. You'll see that later. I'm going to go ahead and install that now. And in order to get that ready to install, I have to, this Anderson connector is going to screw onto the face inside this box, and I have to drill a couple of pilot holes for the screws. I don't have a great device for marking them, so I just use this. It's just pretty far down in there, and I don't have the right size marking tool. But this drill bit's about the right diameter to stay centered, and it's been doing a pretty decent job. So after drilling that pilot, I take this drill and I have it marked for the depth so I won't drill out through the face. Then take the Anderson connector. Just going to use this yellow one, the one I've been using, and I'll go ahead and temporarily screw this on because I want to use it to lay out where this is located on the box. This is going to make it nice and strong for when I need to disconnect from this connector. All right. Now I'm going to fasten it through the hole, and I'm going to bias it up towards the top of the notching that I've made because these wires need to come straight down. That's why I had to cut this bevel. These wires need to come straight down into the box to connect to the power supply inside. So that's going to work fine. I'm using that pin tacker again. I found some 1-inch pins for it. And what's going to do the real work here is the glue. Aliphatic resin, Type Bond 2. You having a good morning, Rona? You're a good girl. You're a good girl, Rona. Best dog ever. Don't tell Shadow I told you that. But you can believe it. You a good one. All right. I want to smear glue on the face, so I'm going to put this in here very carefully to where when it makes contact, it's in the right location. And then I trust my eyeball. I am not going to lay this out. If it looks right to me now, it will look right to me later. Put a couple of pins in the front and a couple in the back. Because again, the glue is doing all the work. And then I'm going to push real hard while I remove these screws. And I want to take this Anderson connector out. It needs to not be in there when I'm applying finish anyway. But I'm also going to snug fit. I'm also going to put a couple of pin tacks here where they're hidden to help hold it while the glue dries. Glue's doing all the work. Okay, that part's done. Looks like this. Now, the next thing to do is to install the BMS. And actually, the next thing to do is to temporarily tack in this piece, which is going to help conceal my hole. You can see it with the camera, but later you won't be able to really look down and see that. And I'm only going to put one tack in it right now so that I can get it off easily. But I want it there to help me space where I put the BMS. So this is the BMS that I'm going to use for the battery management system, made by Ceplos. And it has a lot of devices on it and a lot of places to plug wires in. The big connections are here. And I'm going to mount it right here. And it is not flat. I have some 1-inch standoffs that I've created. And I had to be very careful how I put them on this end. There's a little solder joint here, a pin connector here, and here there's a little resistor and another tiny little resistor. So I've snugged it up close to them, marked the holes, and put some number 6 by 1/2 inch stainless screws to put them on. And I set them all up like they were going to be when it's done. Then I'll fasten this in. Then I'll remove the BMS for the finishing process. And then I'll be able to put it back onto those same mounting holes later. Love you too, Rona. I think I can take this stuff off. Whew. Gets a little hot working in all that in Texas. Another warm day. It's supposed to cool off next week, only get up into the upper 80s for highs. Been around 100 the last few days. All right. Now I want to be very careful how I do this because I only get to do it once. I'm going to put this down in a location that I have figured out works over the time I've been doing these. This is the 6th that I've done. The other 5 are ready to finish onto. And the first one I'm going to fasten to is this top metal. These pins are 1 inch long, so they're only going into this dowel by 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to take this piece right here, and I'm going to use it as a gauge to make this more or less level. And that's close enough. It does not have to be perfect, but it just wants to be close. Next piece. The pins I'm putting in here on the top 3 dowels will be completely hidden by the hinge. The others are not going to show much. And so far I've been real lucky. I'm just eyeballing this on either side of the plywood, and I haven't had any miss yet. So maybe we'll do that here on the video for the first time. Or maybe 40 years of fooling around with this stuff and make it where I don't make that mistake. I don't know. Got to get something besides dull saw blades for my trouble. Well, and not screw that up. All right. Next step. There is a display that goes with this device that shows state of charge and cell voltages and all the rest. It monitors this BMS. And I've decided that I'm going to mount it right here, like this. This part right here I made with a piece of 3/4 plywood and just running the dado blade until I had it ready to just cut parts a piece. I made 12 of these, And most of the work was done with the dado blade, and the screen, which I don't have here with me, but you'll see in a later video, will mount into these 4 holes. I used the screen to lay out the holes, and it needed a mounting location, and this is going to be it. This comes out of that same block that I made. The same rectangular tube. I just cut the angle at the opposite, in the opposite direction from the one that I used to mount the Anderson connector. And it just worked out fine. And this will stabilize and secure the mounting piece that I made for the display. All right, and I have determined that if I put it flush with the top of this heatsink, that I'll still be able to get to this screw underneath it, and I'll be able to get to this screw above it. And it'll be up near the top, so it's going to be easy to read. And I figured out that this is about the right distance from the heatsink to give me what I need for clearance to the front of the battery. So we just start with 1 nail right there. And then I just eyeball this, because again, it's not really critical that I make this perfect. Put a couple here. And that's a nice wet glue joint. So in the end, that glue joint's going to do all the work. As long as I put a few pins in to hold it snug so that it's tight when the glue sets off, I'll be good. And I'm going to put just a little glue on this and just a couple of pins, because I don't think I'll ever need this to come off, but there's no reason to overdo this glue joint. This will not be under any strain. And it's important to only make things as strong as they need to be and no stronger, or else the demo gods will require that you take it apart. So here we go. 1 there, 1 there, 1 there, and that's done. Ready for the display to mount. So we are almost finished here, folks. I am going to remove the BMS. And the glue is not quite set up yet, but it's already getting close on this. And it has the pin tacks that are holding the pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and take this loose. And remove it. And that's how it comes out. And I'll put it back in its sleeve to keep the dust off of it. Very important. I'm not treating it well with regards to static electricity, but that's not so much of an issue in hot, humid central Texas in the summer. In the wintertime, I would have to be much more careful about static electricity, I think. All right, so that's all done. All these edges are eased. These are ready to go. And that's what it looks like on the inside. That's what it looks like on the front side. And then the most fun that we have is getting the dust out of it, because Rona loves the air hose. out there totally tied up with birds. All right, that's all for this video. Thank you for your patience.